glad we got here early.
It's the best time. Let's walk all the way to the end of the beach.
Janet, why do people lie?
I guess for lots of reasons, Sarah. People think it'll help them make friends or avoid trouble. Why do you ask?
Well, something happened in my school yesterday that I thought was really unfair. It started in the morning. Phil and Larry were making plans to go downtown at 2:30. So when Ben came up and wanted Larry to play basketball after school, Larry explained that he couldn't. Well, that afternoon, Ben gave Larry a message that Phil couldn't meet him after all. So Larry decided to stay and play basketball with Ben. Well, Ben had just made the whole thing up, and Phil waited there for almost an hour. When he finally started to walk home, he passed the basketball court and saw Ben and Larry. Phil was really mad.
I've known some creeps, Larry Angelo, but you are the lowest. Just stay away from me, you hear? But Phil, I didn't. Shut up. I don't want to hear it.
Why do you think Ben lied like that?
I guess he figured he wouldn't get caught and he'd be able to play basketball with Larry like he wanted. But look at what he did. First of all, he kept Larry and Phil from going downtown, which is what they both wanted to do. He didn't have any right to interfere like that. And he really messed up their friendship, too. Who knows how long it'll take to straighten that out? And they're sure not going to like Ben when they do.
Boy, I never realized how much trouble a little lie can cause. You can really hurt other people.
You know, something like that happened to Jack last week. His younger sister, Cindy, came racing around the corner of their house and crashed right into the garbage can. She was in a real hurry and didn't want to stop and pick everything up. So she just ran off and left it.
What's that got to do with Jack?
Well, later on, their mom stopped Cindy and asked her if she did it.
No, Mom, it must have been Jack. I saw him running around back here a little while ago.
Well, when Jack got home, his mom really yelled at him, and it took him a long time to convince her he didn't do it. It's bad enough to lie and say you didn't do something, but it's even worse to blame somebody else. How would you feel if somebody did that to you? Here, try this one.
Well, I'd be pretty mad, and I bet Cindy feels pretty bad about it now, too.
That's another thing about lying. When you see all the trouble you've caused, you feel bad about it, too.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but suppose you just keep quiet when you're the one who did something. Is that the same as lying?
Do you have anyone particular in mind?
Yeah. Well, Roger. He was outside hitting a baseball, you know, just throwing it up and hitting it. Then he hit one a little farther than he meant to, and went right through Mrs. Johnson's window. Well, he was afraid of what might happen if he got caught, so he just took off and forgot about it. Later he was walking around with Jay and Mike, and Mrs. Johnson came over and asked them if they knew anything about the window. Roger hadn't told them about it, so they said they didn't know anything, and Roger just kept quiet. Now the thing is, Roger didn't really lie, did he?
Well, it was sure just as bad as a lie. What's the difference if he actually said something or he didn't? By not saying anything, he made Mrs. Johnson believe he knew nothing about it. You know, probably if he told Mrs. Johnson what happened right away, he wouldn't feel guilty and nervous like he does now. He's just making it tougher on himself. It was an accident. People understand things like that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But what about lies that don't hurt anybody? You know, like bragging or making up a story. What's wrong with that?
Oh, I've got a good example of that. Carol and Pete were at the playground the other day when Steve Johnson came up and tried to join in. They really didn't want to play with Steve, so they just kind of ignored him. So Steve started telling them all this stuff about when he went to the auto races. They were really impressed and stopped to listen.
My dad's one of the top drivers on the circuit. He's won 6 races already this year. I usually stay down in the pits. That's where he brings the car in for more gas and new tires and things. Well, last week, I saved the race by yelling to the mechanics to fix his wheel. I was the only one who noticed it wasn't right.
Come on, Steve. I heard all that. You're making the whole thing up.
It was his sister. She was really upset because he's done that sort of thing before. And Carol and Jeff, well, they couldn't believe it.
Nobody likes to be tricked like that. I'll bet they were really mad.
That's for sure. And think about the next time Steve tells them something. Even if it is true, they're never going to believe him. Now, let me make up an example about cheating, because it's another way of making things tougher on yourself. Say a kid's sitting in class, and his teacher says it's time for the spelling test. He gets all nervous because he hasn't studied. He tries a little, but he's just not doing very well. Then he notices he can read the kid's paper next to him. He slowly looks over and copies each word.
I know he shouldn't cheat, but how come you said he was making things harder on himself? He probably passed the test.
Sure he did, but when you cheat on a test, you're not learning, and that just makes it harder for you to learn things later on. And that kid wasn't only cheating himself. Suppose you'd spent an hour studying for that test and saw someone cheating off of your paper.
I'd really feel he cheated me.
That's right. Hey, we better get back.
Okay. Boy, when you really think about all this, lying and cheating aren't just things parents tell you not to do, huh?
And being afraid of getting punished isn't the most important reason not to do it either.
Yeah, you can really hurt other people.
And you can hurt yourself by making things harder on you. That's the thing that sticks in my mind. Lying can change the way people feel about you and the way you feel about yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, I think I'd feel rotten if I thought about a lie I told. I'm sure I'd find a lot of bad things about it, just like we did with all the ones we talked about. If you do that before you're about to tell a lie, you probably won't go through with it.
I guess so.